Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. Our next session, moving forward, will now focus on the ASEAN Digital Economy Framework, or integration. And building on these insights, we are now ready to transition to our next agenda item, which is the briefer session. So with that, please join me in welcoming to the stage our esteemed briefer, the head of Digital Economy Division, Market Integration Directorate of the ASEAN Secretariat, Mr. Sivaram Superamanian.
Thank you. A very good morning. Let me just quickly introduce myself. Has been introduced as well. My name is Sivaram Superamanian. In short, you can call me Ram. I'm the head of Digital Economy Division at the ASEAN Secretariat. Now, I've been strictly told that I need to keep within my time for 3 minutes. Right, so without further ado, let me just go straight to my presentation. I'll be presenting on ASEAN Digital Economy Framework, or the initiatives that we have within the ASEAN. So before I start, to begin with, we all know the COVID-19 pandemic has accelerated the digital transformation globally, and even so for ASEAN. So if you look at the bar chart on my right, before the pandemic, ASEAN had new users of 100 million for a period of 5 years. And this period, we are talking from 2015 to 2019. Now, probably one of the benefits of pandemic is, because of the pandemic, within a period of 3 years, which is from 2020 to 2022, we already hit the 100 million new internet users. Now, what is more exciting is, with a population of 600 over million of ASEAN, 460 million are internet users. And 80% of these 460 million, they are digital consumers who are those who are involved in some form of digital transformation in the internet. So with that, the leaders got together in 2021, and they actually adopted a document called Bandar Sri Begawan Roadmap. What does this document do? Is actually prioritize the initiatives or the focus that ASEAN need to have, right, in order to further accelerate the digital transformation in ASEAN. So what you see on the screen is non-exhaustive. I selected some of it, right? And this also will be covered in the Digital Economy Framework Agreement. So let me just quickly run through some of these initiatives. So on my far right, the first initiative is digital trade. Now, this is something buzzword. Everyone has been using ever since pandemic digital trade, but nobody has a single definition for it, right? For ASEAN, what is important digital trade means is the exchange of electronic documents. We have successfully exchanged electronic documents for customs, right? We have exchanged the Atika E-Form D, or Certificate of Origin. We have also exchanged the custom declaration document. Moving forward, we are exchanging the agriculture-related documents. Now, we all know private sector play an important role when it comes to digital trade, which is cross-border trade. And this is where one of the areas that we'll be embarking is the types of documents that need to be exchanged when it comes to private sector. So this could be at the financial, this could be logistic, this could be shipping, and so forth. This is something that we need to further deep dive, and we'll be engaging with the private sector. Number 2 is on digital standards. Let me just be clear, ASEAN, we have no intention to create our own standards. What we really want is to adopt international standards which allows 2 things. One is standardization, and number 2, as the ambassador from India has mentioned, interoperability. I think these are the 2 things that we are looking at. There is a committee that looks into digital standards. They actually develop standards in wide area, which includes cybersecurity, digital payment, and so forth. Number 3 is digital payment, right? As of 2021, I think one of the panel speakers mentioned about QR code. In 2021, we already start implementing the real-time retail payment systems, right? So this, if you are from Indonesia and you have CIMB app, right, CIMB Niaga app, you are able to go to Bangkok or Singapore or any of the countries in ASEAN member states and able to do a transaction regardless you're in a restaurant or you're at retail outlets, right? So no more cash, and you don't have to exchange your currency, you just have to tap. So at this point of time, many of these transactions are done bilaterally, one-to-one between the ASEAN member states. What are we embarking or we are looking at is bilateral, where we can go into many to many. And this has not been done in any part of the world, even in the Europe. Right? So we are looking into technologies, the Nexus, Modulo, and so on, and how do we do this? Number 4 is digital ID. Again, here digital ID, we are looking at interoperable digital ID. ASEAN is not interested just to connect among the 10 ASEAN member states. We want to connect to the world. We want to connect to the India. We want to connect to the UK, US, Japan, Korea, and so forth. So we have embarked into 2 main initiatives. Digitalization of your personal ID, meaning that if I'm a Malaysian, I would be able to do transaction with the Singapore government with my digital ID. But what is really important that we are looking is the business ID, right? So what we have done a study, which we call it as UBIN, which has been endorsed by the ASEAN economic ministers in August. That is phase 1. Phase 2, we are looking at the use cases where we can go embark into the implementation of business ID. Now, number 5 is on cybersecurity and data protection. We have a team called CERT, Computer Emergency Response Team. What is CERT means? This is where all the cybersecurity experts within the 10 countries come together and work together on do 2 things. When there's an incident happen, especially with your critical national infrastructure, how do we come together and respond to the incident? Number 2, when it comes to cybersecurity, it's really important to exchange knowledge. Some nations are more advanced, some need to be educated. So how do we come together and exchange knowledge, exchange experiences, and how do we train each other in the area of cybersecurity? When it comes to data protection, which is one of the key areas, we do have guidelines that's been developed. We have the ASEAN Digital Management Framework, which provides a detailed guideline on how organizations can protect their data. The second is the model contractual clauses. This is where when the data is cross-border from one AMS to another AMS, how should the data be protected? At this point of time, we are also working with the EU, right? EU, as we have MCC, EU also has their SCC. So we are looking at the guidelines on how data can be protected when it's cross-border between ASEAN and to the EU. Now, last but not least, I think the previous panel spoke a lot about digital skills and talent, upskilling and reskilling, and this is really important because ASEAN, most of our industries, 97 to 99% our industries are MSMEs, right? So what do? We can't work policy, we can only make policies, but what we do is we work very closely with the private sector in order to do 2 things. Number 1, to create content and to learn, right? To give training, right? And this is where the content and the learning is done in the native language. Because most MSMEs, right, digitalization is not something difficult. But because of the language, they find it is quite difficult, right? So therefore, creating content and doing the development and training in their native language is very important to accelerate the adoption of digitalization. Number 2 is we need to change the mindset of the business owners. Now, previous speaker has spoke about relearning, learning, and unlearning, learning, and relearning. This is really important for the business owners, right? The mindset has to change. As you develop, you need to unlearn, you need to learn and relearn new technologies, new way of doing business, and so on. So this is where we have ASEAN SME Academy, where the private sector will come in and provide the content and training. We also have the Go Digital ASEAN, which focus on the rural area. So there's many initiatives we've been doing for the last 2 to 3 years, right? But unfortunately, we have developed a lot of framework, we have developed a lot of guidelines, but unfortunately, these are volunteers, right? So what happens? The adoption of this guideline, which has been won award, has been very low. So this is where the Digital Economy Framework Agreement comes in, right? Whereby we are going to legally bind some of these guidelines, some of the framework, which will further accelerate the digital transformation in ASEAN. Now, this is my last slide. I've already exceeded my 3 minutes. Now, so what is exciting, I think the ambassador from India has also said about the Digital Economy Framework Agreement. Now, before we start the study, right, Boston Consulting was a consultant for this study, and we told them that what economic benefits can we gain from going into a DEFA agreement, right? So this is the chart that you can see that came out from the Boston Consulting. As we speak now, right, the digital economy for ASEAN is worth 300 to 400 billion based on last year or this year, right? Now, if you don't do anything, business as usual, the organic growth is going to be 1 trillion. We are going to be a $1 trillion digital economy, right? But what is beauty about us, DEFA, the moment you have a digital-only agreement which talks about interoperability, which talks about an open system where we can connect to the world, not only within the ASEAN, right? We talk about the legal framework. We are talking about UNICITRA model law, which is a game changer, which is going to change a lot of things, which private sector is able to spur in their involvement in digital economy. So by having DEFA, a forward-looking DEFA, this is where we think that we can double the digital economy value from $1 trillion to $2 trillion. As much as we are excited, we are also going into negotiation, and we really hope that we will negotiate a forward-looking DEFA, and this is where, during the process, we will be engaging with private sector people like you and Joint Business Council to get the feedback from the ground. I guess that's it, right? 5 minutes, I'll be here. Feel free to come over to me if you have any questions. I'll be happy to assist you. Thank you.